The Woods clan is relocating to their rural abode. Kira and Brian are quite pleased with their children's new domicile, and their son Steven is equally thrilled. However, their daughter Ellie is a different matter entirely. She deeply resents leaving her companions and feels estranged from her parents, convinced they don't comprehend her. This residence, dubbed Zeus, is quite peculiar. There's an antiquated portrait of a man with an upraised digit, and letters from an unknown script with a triangle beneath them adorn every doorway except one, which merely displays a pentagon. Upon exploring the cellar, they find it rather unremarkable, but as they depart, the door abruptly closes, trapping Ellie inside. The lock malfunctions, refusing to yield, and as she senses an unseen presence approaching in the darkness, fear begins to consume her. Luckily, the key is dangling right beside the door, allowing Brian to liberate her. Later that evening, Kira entrusts Ellie with babysitting Steven as she and Brian must urgently attend an office meeting. While chatting with an old acquaintance, Ellie is abruptly startled by a peculiar figure. It's merely Steven, garbed in a cloak and adorned with an odd-looking skull he discovered within a concealed compartment in the recreation room. The family was previously unaware of this hidden compartment, prompting Ellie to investigate further. Inside, she finds a plaque inscribed with Salve Coagula, an antiquated record player, and an abacus. Steven recounts a local legend about the house's former owner, a witch who allegedly forged a pact with the devil. Intrigued, Steven requests to operate the record player. Ellie manages to activate it, and a haunting voice emerges, reciting the equation etched onto the record before commencing a chilling countdown. A few hours later, an eerie draft seeps from beneath the cellar door, plunging the entire house into darkness. Ellie contacts her mother for assistance, and Kira instructs her to descend to the cellar and inspect the circuit breaker. Overwhelmed by fear at the prospect of entering such a dimly lit room, Ellie confesses her inability to proceed. Kira, understanding her daughter's apprehension, shares a personal technique she employs to calm her mind. Counting. Guiding Ellie through the phone, Kira encourages her with each step and count. 10 is the designated endpoint, but upon reaching it, Ellie closes her eyes and succumbs to unconsciousness. On the other end of the line, Kira can hear her daughter's count extend to 30, unresponsive to any further prompting. Alarmed, both Kira and Brian rush home. Upon their arrival, they scour the house for Ellie, but to no avail. They immediately contact the police, who initiate a swift search of the surrounding woods, yet their efforts yield no results. As there's no evidence of foul play and Ellie has a history of running away, the police advise the parents to await further developments, suggesting she might be with a friend. The following morning, the family enlists the aid of their neighbors to resume the forest search, but their efforts remain fruitless. Brian acknowledges Ellie's frustration with them, making it plausible that she ran away. However, Kira harbors a different belief. She's convinced something sinister befell Ellie, as her voice sounded increasingly strange during the count. The following day, Kira commences posting missing person notices, neglecting to pick up Steven from school until his teacher contacts her. Once reunited with her son, Kira visits the police station to inquire about any progress, but the detective offers little information. They've scrutinized security footage at bus and train stations and contacted Ellie's friends, but all leads have gone cold, especially since her phone remains missing. The sole significant point the investigator can address is the persistent cyberbullying and harassment Ellie endured. Consumed by guilt over her ignorance, Kira implores the authorities to examine the cellar, steadfast in her belief that her daughter didn't vanish voluntarily. The detective, however, is constrained by the non-criminal nature of the case and can offer little assistance. Upon returning home, Kira discerns an enigmatic inscription, Salve Coagula, etched above the doorway. Intrigued, she delves into the digital realm to unravel its meaning while Steven, oblivious to the mystery, idly bounces a ball against the cellar door. The internet reveals the phrase's alchemical origins, signifying dissolution and coagulation. Associated imagery includes a 5-pointed star and an unusual serpentine creature. Kira summons Steven, who joins her after retrieving his ball near the cellar. Steven assures his mother that nothing unusual occurred on the night of Ellie's disappearance, except for playing the record player. Dismissing this detail as insignificant, Kira returns to the computer to examine Ellie's social media, where she discovers a hidden anarchist tattoo her daughter had never disclosed. Later, Kira decides to re-examine the cellar. She gazes at the pentagonal symbol above the door before descending with a flashlight. This time, she notices Roman numerals adorning the steps and an equation at their end, identical to the one on the record player. However, the most unsettling revelation comes when the UV light from the flashlight illuminates a series of disturbing faces etched onto the walls. This revelation prompts the police to dispatch a forensic team. One of the officers inadvertently knocks Steven's ball into the cellar. Unfortunately, the investigation yields no further clues, and the only definitive information is that the painting has been present since the 1950s. When questioned about the house's history, Brian admits to knowing little other than its previous owner, an elderly woman, and the remarkably low purchase price. As night descends, the family retires to bed, but Kira is awakened by a damp Steven. After changing his sheets, Kira retreats to the bathroom to listen to her daughter's voice on the answering machine for solace. However, she's startled by the sound of Ellie's voice counting, emanating from an unexpected source, the sink pipes. The eerie voice persists even as she exits the bathroom, prompting Kira to follow its source to the cellar. Upon entering, she inadvertently kicks Steven's ball, which tumbles down the stairs, its echoing bounces lasting far longer than expected. Kira illuminates the cellar and descends, but the ball remains elusive. The following morning, Brian awakens to find Kira absent from bed. He searches for her and discovers her fixated on the symbols above the doors, a piece of paper bearing the cellar equation clutched in her hand. While he empathizes with her feelings of helplessness, Brian doubts that obsessing over random symbols will yield any answers. Subsequently, Kira contacts her realtor to inquire about the previous owner. Unfortunately, he only knows that she was the offspring of a renowned academic who originally owned the house, but he promises to delve deeper. Eager to remain occupied, Kira begins photographing the symbols above the doors before heading to work. She forwards the images to her secretary, requesting a meaning decipherment while she attends a meeting. However, her preoccupation with Ellie's disappearance hinders her focus, prompting her to leave early. Upon exiting, Kira is intercepted by her secretary, who reveals the symbols to be Hebrew glyphs spelling Leviathan, a sea creature from Jewish mythology. Kira proceeds to collect Steven from school, only to find him injured from a fight instigated by a classmate who claimed Ellie is deceased. Upon returning home, Kira delves into online research on the Leviathan, discovering a striking resemblance between the depictions and the serpent she encountered alongside the Salve Coagule inscription. Next, she experiments with the record player. As the voice commences its count, the abacus in the recreation room spontaneously begins to move. Steven joins in, synchronizing his count with the device's movements and heading towards the autonomously opened hidden compartment. Fortunately, Kira intervenes, shutting off the record player and halting her son's actions. When questioned about his behavior, Steven exhibits no recollection of his recent actions. Kira then turns her attention to the painting of the man with the raised finger. She discovers his name, John Featherston, inscribed alongside the Hebrew glyphs. An internet search reveals that his entire family vanished from this very house, except for his daughter. At that precise moment, an eerie draft emanates from beneath the cellar door, plunging the house into darkness. Steven's desperate pleas for help echo from behind the cellar door, prompting Kira to rush to his aid. However, the lock is jammed, and the key is nowhere to be found. Peering through the keyhole, she's met with the unsettling gaze of an animal's eye, causing her to recoil in fright. Reorienting herself, she finds the real Steven in the hallway. Suddenly, the cellar door swings open on its own, and the power returns, revealing the key had been on the floor all along. Kira rehangs the key before descending into the cellar, illuminating the way with her phone's flashlight. As soon as she enters, the door shuts behind her, trapping her inside. She calls out to Steven for assistance, but he's too short to reach the key, necessitating a chair retrieval mission. While waiting, Kira attempts to peer deeper into the cellar, inadvertently dropping her phone. This triggers a heavy breathing sound from the depths, accompanied by a menacing presence creeping closer. The creature ascends the stairs, and Kira's desperation mounts. Fortunately, Brian arrives in the nick of time to rescue her. Later, Kira confides in Brian about the ominous presence she felt and the missing phone. She also draws a parallel between the Featherston family's disappearance and Ellie's, but Brian dismisses her concerns as delusions. To calm her, Brian descends into the cellar to retrieve her phone, only to discover a ball of hair. The following day, Kira visits the National College of Mathematics, home to the Featherston wing, to consult with Dr. Remy Fournette, a brilliant mathematician. She presents him with the equation from the cellar, and as he reads it aloud, the lights flicker momentarily. While deciphering the equation, Fournette shares insights into Featherston's past, revealing that this was his office and that he was a colleague of Erwin Schrödinger, the renowned scientist famous for his paradoxical cat. Featherston collaborated closely with Schrödinger until his son's illness forced him to withdraw from academic life. The circumstances surrounding his disappearance remain shrouded in mystery, with Rose, his daughter and the house's previous owner, the only potential source of information. However, Rose, still traumatized by the past, remains silent on the matter. Fournette manages to create a visual representation of the equation, interpreting it as a potential gateway to other dimensions. The complexity of the equation surpasses anything he's encountered, necessitating further analysis. He promises to contact Kira with his findings. Sometime later, Kira returns home with a new phone. As soon as she activates it, she receives a call from Fournette, who reveals that he's been attempting to reach her for some time. However, a strange voice, limited to counting, repeatedly answered the phone. Fournette then divulges that he consulted with a colleague about the equation, who believes it's linked to a 12th century alchemical mathematical branch. It appears to be an incomplete sequence or an unfinished incantation, undeniably connected to other dimensions. This colleague has also encountered a similar equation in a Belgian house where a family vanished without a trace. Meanwhile, Brian checks on Kira, leaving Steven alone in the recreation room, where the abacus mysteriously begins to move. Kira shares her findings with Brian, revealing that Leviathan is the serpent of the abyss and the house, named Zeos, is the Greek term for the void preceding time, also known as the abyss. Once again, Brian dismisses her theories as overinterpretation. To distract her, he attempts to destroy the equation plaque with a hammer, but the tool bounces off, leaving the inscription unscathed. At that precise moment, the record player springs to life, and Steven approaches the hidden compartment. Inside, he encounters a pale, disfigured Ellie, incessantly counting and displaying glyphs carved into her face. Steven cries out for help, but when his parents arrive, the record player is stuck on the number 10, and Ellie has vanished, leaving only her phone behind. The following day, Kira receives a call from her realtor, providing information on the whereabouts of Featherston's daughter. Kira drives to a nursing home, where she finds an elderly Rose confined to a wheelchair inside the chapel. Undeterred, Kira informs Rose about Ellie's disappearance and seeks her assistance. After a brief silence, Rose writes down Leviathan, clarifying that it's not a name but one of the 7 princes of hell, summoned by her father to cure her brother's illness. The ritual, she reveals, isn't confined to the cellar but encompasses the entire house. On her way back, Kira attempts to contact Fournette, but the line is filled with static and a counting voice. Meanwhile, Brian, independently researching, discovers that combining the triangles and pentagon forms a 5-pointed star. This star, adorned with glyphs, represents Baphomet, the guardian of hell. The image depicts him making the same hand gesture as Featherston in the painting, with Solve Coagula 2 inscribed on his arms. Upon discovering this, Kira realizes Rose's assertion. The entire house is designed around this demonic ritual. Kira activates the record player, explaining that the equation likely opens the gate. Simultaneously, Steven loses control of his drone, following it into the cellar, counting each step. Baphomet awaits him at the bottom, and Steven's terrified scream echoes as the power fails. His parents rush to his aid but find only the drone, prompting a frantic search of the house. When Steven's ball mysteriously appears, bouncing down the stairs, they follow the sound of a counting voice, discovering their son on the verge of entering the hidden compartment. They pull him away, finding him feverish and delirious. While Brian fetches water, Kira attempts to remove Steven's shirt, only to find a star carved into his chest. Suddenly, Steven, still feverish, recounts riding a horned beast before resuming his ominous counting. Kira seeks out Brian, finding him in another room, counting down. As he reaches 0, he declares, "It's here." The cellar door swings open, a powerful gust of wind billowing out as the sounds of Baphomet's ascent echo through the house. Kira retreats to another room, but the demon finds her, forcing her to flee into the cellar, armed with a flashlight. The stairs have inexplicably lengthened, leading to a door at the end. Kira rushes towards it, desperate to escape the beast. She hides behind a wall at the bottom, waiting for Baphomet to depart through the door before venturing into the room. Discovering a tunnel, she traverses it, only to be confronted with a vast, open space filled with lost souls, marching in unison and counting. Among them, she recognizes Ellie, identifiable by her distinctive tattoo. Grabbing her daughter, Kira rushes back towards the stairs, the sound of Baphomet's pursuit urging her on. In the haste, she drops the flashlight. Upon returning to the house, the power is restored, and Kira seals the cellar door, trapping the beast within. The family is safe, and Kira urges them to leave. As she approaches the entrance, she spots the flashlight on the floor. As her family begins to count, Kira opens the door, revealing an infinitely long staircase leading into the unknown. Kira joins the count, and the house, no longer nestled in the woods, is revealed to be situated on a desolate, barren land. Remember to subscribe and enable notifications to stay updated with more thrilling content. Thank you for watching.